How's it going, everybody? This is Carlos, your host of the Just Fans podcast. I got Rios here joining me for the Texans versus Ravens Week 1
Tears of
post
lamentation.
game show.
Tears of
And
lamentation.
yeah, we're going to talk about exactly what we saw today. So let's go over the analytics part of it. We got CJ Stroud versus Lamar Jackson. CJ Stroud today was 28 of 44 for 242 yards. Lamar Jackson was 17 out of 22 with 169 yards and one interception. Here's the sad part of this. Damian Pierce had 11 carries for the entire game at 38 yards only.
Sad part is 6 of those came in the first half.
Right.
Which, as I mentioned earlier, I don't understand why they kept away from the run, especially early on. He was averaging almost 6 yards a carry, and then just
Right.
stopped giving him the ball.
All right, so we'll talk about more of that later, really quick. And then it's funny because Lamar Jackson had the same amount of rushing yards as Damian Pierce. A quarterback had the same amount of rushing yards as the running back for the Houston Texans, Damian Pierce.
On fewer carries.
Fewer carries, yes. And of course, today, Nico Collins had 80 yards in receiving, six receptions. Zay Flowers for the Ravens, nine receiving yard, nine carries for 78 yards.
9 receptions, sir.
Receptions, whatever. Nonetheless, it was a terrible game. The Texans lost 25-9. That puts them at third place in the division currently because right now it's Jacksonville at the top, which we expected. Um, Tennessee lost also, so there you go, Sam. Take that. And
Take that.
Yeah. So let's go over. What do you want to go over first? You want to go over the terrible offensive plays? Let's do that.
Let's start with the negatives.
Yeah.
So, play calling. Baffling to say the least. The run was working with Pierce, but they kept away from he's averaging 6 yards a carry.
He was averaging out.
And then they decided to stop running the ball, try to throw. I'm like, this is CJ's first game against a top 10 defense. You know what? Use the run to set up the pass versus vice versa. He's not Mahomes. He's first game, first year of his career. Let's get a little confidence. Use the run to set up the play action. They try to do the opposite. Try to use the pass to set up the run. That's not going to work. Not against a top 10 unit. As banged up as they were, they're still a top 10 defense.
Right.
And you're not going to fool John Harbaugh. He's been around the league for 10 plus years, multiple Super Bowl wins, multiple playoff wins. You're not going to fool him. So why would you try to set up the run with the pass with a rookie quarterback?
So actually, he had David Pierce was actually averaging 3.5 yards per carry.
Well, that's in the second half. Those first half yards.
No, that's the overall game, sir.
No, I'm talking about the first half is averaging over 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Because he had 26 yards on 6 carries, or 36 yards on 6 carries. Excuse me.
Yeah. I think the bad part about it was the fact that Damian Pierce had only 11 rushing attempts.
Five in the second half. 5 in the second half.
Lamar Jackson and him had the exact same amount of rushing yards. That shouldn't happen. If you're a offensive coordinator like Bobby Slowick, you need to understand that Damian Pierce is there to help out your rookie quarterback. He's there to be one of his safety blankets out of the many that he should have. This is not the way to start out the season and develop CJ Stroud if you are, trying to develop CJ. You cannot let him just throw every play. You have to let him, you have to use Damian Pierce as a safety blanket for him because now you're getting all the pressure on CJ Stroud. I thought the biggest takeaway that I had from today's game was how awful the play calling was with Bobby Slowick. I was not impressed. I almost felt like Tim Kelly was calling the Texans play again.
Right. Not just the play calling, but the offensive line calling as well. You had basically from the right side 3 runs at the quarterback all game long. That should not happen at all. I don't care if it's a backup right tackle. The edge rusher should not have free runs at your rookie quarterback all game.
The Texans
zero type of protection from the right side.
The Texans' offensive line made Jadeveon Clowney look great today, and that shouldn't happen because we all know Jadeveon Clowney is over and done with.
They made it look like Reggie White in his prime. That was just embarrassing.
That was awful. But no, that's to my point.
Not just that. Also, what baffled me was the lack of use of Tank Dell. This is your most
That too.
electrifying playmaker, and he's basically his main job was returning punts. He had a few plays here and there, but he should have been starting this game. Why is Noah Brown out there? Like, there's a reason the Cowboys let him go. He's not that guy. He's not super electric. He's not gonna move the needle. Why is he? Why is he the slot receiver? Why?
Right. No, exactly. No, Tank Dell should have been used a lot more. I feel like this particular game. Also, just again,
Because he was your second leading receiver coming off the bench.
yeah, my biggest problem was with not having Damian Pierce being used in the how do you call it in the at all basically in the offense today. 11 attempts for 38 rushing yards. That's got to be a record low for him
It
in one
is.
game.
Not just that, like when the game was close, like one of the things I said they need to do to win the game, control the clock, keep Lamar on the sidelines, and how you do that, running the ball, picking up first downs, and being methodical, not trying to do too much. This is you have a rookie quarterback against a top 10 defense.
Right.
Like read the room. Like he's not going to light them up. Like you want to be methodical, move it slowly down the field,
Right.
pick up first downs. Chunk plays on running plays, first down, third down throws when you need to, not throwing the ball on every down and then praying for a miracle. That's just not going to work.
Right. Big shout out to Minnie Phelps, who's watching us on our YouTube channel right now. Thank you. Big shout out to you, Minnie. Thanks for giving us a little shout out here. But yeah, going back to that, offense really struggled. If this is any indication of how the Texans season is going to go, Bobby Slowick is not the guy. They really, really need to work on the offensive play calls. And I get that this is a brand new offense, brand new coach, brand new offensive coordinator. I get that, but this is your learning point. You look at what happened today at the game. You realize, and you start realizing, okay, maybe we should have used Damian Pierce. Not maybe. You should have used Damian Pierce a lot more in this game.
Most definitely. Like
Now, there was a particular scene, like literally right after the half, when the Texans got the ball back. Singletary was in every single drive. Excuse me, every single play in that drive.
well, when they've got the ball after half, instead of trying, they're in their own side of the field. Instead of trying to run it, pick up some positive yards. Three straight runs, three and out. Next series is all Singletary. Like, is Pierce hurt? Like, what's going on? Like, why is
We thought Pierce was hurt, right, for
Yeah.
a good while.
like why Singletary? Like Singletary is not he's not going to move the needle as far as a running back. He's a great receiver out of the backfield, but as far as but the way they used him was runs up the middle.
No.
That's not his game at all. He's not. He's 5'8", like 190. He's not a bruiser. He's not fast. He's basically a jag, just another guy running back.
Right.
But they put him over Pierce for some odd reason, and again another drive that was three and out.
I would hope they were to learn from last season when they used to put Rex Burkhead over Damian Pierce, and now they're doing the same thing with Singletary. I wasn't impressed with that one. That play calling needs to be better by Bobby Slowick. He needs to fix that. That was awful play calling today, and that had a lot of it basically made the Texans look one dimensional because all you did was have C.J. Stroud, a rookie, pass the ball, distribute the ball to basically only Robert Woods and Nico Collins, and that was about it, really. You had Dalton Schultz here and there. You had maybe a couple of passes over there to Tank Dell, and that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, it was. Play calling was definitely a little bit baffling. I think they need to utilize Nico a little bit, yes, because they kept trying to target him and he just wasn't getting it done. He's 6'4" and one of the fastest guy on the field on paper, but there was no separation. When the ball was near him, they couldn't haul it in. Like, you know what? Let's try to shy away a little bit from him. Focus on the guys that are actually able to haul it in and get some yards. Robert Woods is, he's not going to, he's not blazing speed, but he's sure-handed. He's going to get you some easy first downs. Same thing with Schultz. If you're looking for dazzling plays, that should be Tank Dell. Design some plays, get him in space, and let him, go to work. That's, should have been the game plan, but it was not. It was again. I'm struggling to comprehend the game plan. I don't know what they were trying to do in offense at all.
I really don't either. It was a cluster of just like what is happening. Why are we not utilizing the run? Does Bobby Slowick know that he have Damian Pierce on the team? Like I was very confused at Bobby Slowick's like offensive scheme this season.
Like this is the Shanahan offense. It's based off the run.
Yeah, it's play action pass, run. Like I don't understand. You were and then I don't know if you were using. Were you confused at who was your running back? Like
Like
that's what I was throwing. I'm
it seemed
thrown
like
off
they're
by.
trying to do the air raid, and CJ.
No,
First of all, he's not an air raid
CJ is not an
quarterback.
air raid
He wasn't one
quarterback.
in court. He wasn't one in college. Well, I don't see why he'd be one in the NFL, and the air
Exactly.
raid doesn't work in the NFL.
And at this point, this is not the right time to actually try that out in the NFL. Now, there was some positives to CJ Stroud in that offense. There was a good point where, for a good 6 minutes, the very first drive, CJ Stroud was hitting Robert Woods and Nico Collins on some extent and extended some drives. So I think it was a little bit before the half.
Yeah,
CJ got into a little groove, started hitting the right targets here and there,
on the first
and
scoring drive, yeah.
yeah, and they scored. Yes, it amounted to a field goal, but it was still a scoring drive to begin with. So I think when you're facing a team against the Ravens who didn't really have much offense. I know that the score says something different, but that score is based off of like mistakes by the Texans and
Turnovers.
turnovers exactly. One thing that I did call on the pre-show was the amount of turnovers. I think the Texans last season were the fifth in turnovers. If they can capitalize on those turnovers, they'll be fine. I mean, you went 25. You lost 9-25 against the Baltimore Ravens. The thing about it is, the Baltimore Ravens don't have an offense. They only had Zay Flowers, and if anything, J.K. Dobbins went out by the half with what looks like to
Achilles.
be an Achilles, and then it was just a very injury-prone game. Our own Jalen Petrie went out too with a chest injury, hoping it's not like a pectoral injury because then he'd be probably out for the rest of the season. But other than that, it was embarrassing overall. Again, I'm just like upset mostly at how terrible the play calling was by Bobby Slowick. I was not a fan of that at all.
The play calling, the execution, and just the inconsistency of taking advantage of being in the red zone. Like you get three red zone trips and you come away with three field goals.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned that you can't beat this team scoring field goals.
Cannot.
You need to score touchdowns, and there was zero touchdowns.
Yeah, we're
Lack of aggression mainly was the biggest issue in the red zone. Like take your shots, and you know what? If you don't get it, at least you're still in field goal range. But no, they played it safe in the part of the field where they should have been aggressive versus on the side of the field, it's supposed to be, a little bit more passive. They try to be aggressive and, came back to bite them.
yeah.
And they turned it over on downs. They lost the fumble. Like it was just a multitude of ineptitude.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mistakes today. Let's talk about a lot of the mistakes that we saw both offense and defense. I want to start off with the defensive mistakes on the defensive side of the ball really quick.
Real easy. Just
Yeah.
the most basic thing in football.
Well, setting it.
Tackling.
Well, hold on. Before we
Tackling.
get there, setting the edge was an issue.
We mentioned that, and it came to fruition because they could not stop Lamar once he got to the edge. They
Yeah.
did a better job in the second half, but the first half,
Yeah.
Lamar was having his way.
Stingley missed Dobbins on that touchdown with the tackling.
Not just his first one, the second touchdown as
Yeah.
well.
Like overall, Stingley was pretty good throughout the entire game, but he had two big missed
Three.
tackles.
Well,
Three?
two big missed tackles in the
Yeah.
pass interference.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah, that pass interference. But you got to understand that Odell Beckham milked the mess out of that one,
Oh yeah, he's a soccer player
which it
playing
should
football.
be. Yeah, exactly. So tackling was we. There were so many missed tackles in a lot of those plays that were just
Which
ridiculous to
was an
watch.
issue last year, and I was hoping that's something that would be fixed, but
Right.
it's going to be a work in
I
progress.
still
It
saw it.
seems.
Yeah, exactly. I still saw a lot of that. So I'm hoping that moving forward, they can fix the tackling because that was a big issue last season, and it still seems to be lingering along this season. So missed tackles was a big issue. I still saw it this game. Hopefully that gets fixed.
They need to because next week you get another mobile quarterback, Anthony Richardson,
Right.
because he's going to be struggling to move the ball through the air, so he's going to rely on his legs. So
Right.
you really got to set the edge. It doesn't matter if they're missing, Jonathan Taylor. He's still a very, very good runner, and you need to, contain him. The
Yeah.
other running backs not to worry about, but again, look, Lamar hurt you, and so can Anthony Richardson.
There was we also wrote down better disguises on the defensive side. We had one particular play where Zay Flowers was completely wide open.
Like there was no one within 10 yards of
Nobody
him.
within 10 yards of him. So defensive schemes needs to be disguised a little bit better. Also, going back to the mistakes, there was one particular chop block by Jalen Petrie. Just goes back to being the mistakes.
The discipline,
Discipline.
I was expecting a more disciplined team from D'Amico, but it's
Same, right? Like that. I think that's what's disappointing about today's game too. Like
the lack of discipline,
discipline, missing tackles, just fundamental football,
boneheaded penalties.
boneheaded penalties like that. And don't get me wrong, like I get the offensive struggling because it's brand new, but the defense, you had a core there, but and then you have D'Amico as your defensive coordinator. I mean defensive coordinator, but at the same time, it's like you would think that there would be a little bit more discipline on the defensive side, right?
At least shore up some of those mistakes we had last year. The lack of discipline, the lack of tackling, taking better angles on these tackles. It's basically a repeat of last season. There was I didn't see any improvement on the front seven as far as in that regard. In secondary, just boneheaded plays,
Yeah.
taking bad angles, bad coverages.
So another little stat that I want to throw out: C.J. Stroud's debut. He was sacked 5 times while throwing for 242 yards. Is what he had today. 5 times, 5 times in one game. 4 carries, 20 rushing yards, and one lost fumble.
On pace for the record.
Place for the record again, right? It's like we're just trying to. The one consistent record the Texans have really tried to go over was how many times can we sack our rookie quarterback? I mean, it happened with with David Carr. It happened with Deshaun Watson. Now it's what? Now we're trying to do that same thing with C.J. Stroud.
Wherever David Carr is, he's shipping right now. Is there someone coming?
Yeah,
Where's my blind side?
exactly. So I don't know. It was a terrible game. Like, don't get me wrong, we expected it to be terrible. I didn't. I mean, yes,
Not this bad.
CJ.
CJ wasn't the problem.
Okay, so let's talk about
He
CJ.
made some good reads. He made some good throws. He wasn't the problem.
There were some good throws. There were some bad throws. We all know that. You have to call a spade every once in a while.
It was expected. Like I said,
It was expected.
No one expected perfection.
Right. Sorry, I'm looking at the Astros game right now. That's my sole purpose right now. 12-2, Astros are up.
Let me just say thank God for the Astros.
Right.
Today was rough.
Yes. Thank you,
Very,
Astros.
very rough.
We appreciate it. Nonetheless,
We'll see you at the World Series.
see you at the World Series. Yeah, no, it was like CJ Stroud had some good calls. So there was when he got into that groove of his right before the half and a little bit after the half also, I saw what it could be like once he starts making a lot better decisions on his own. Like I feel like a lot of those were improvised plays where he kind of like took charge and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna throw it down the middle. Boom, he's open. Whenever he takes charge, it seemed like things were going right for CJ Stroud.
He's a timing passer.
Right.
Let him get into a rhythm. One of my friends had texted me hey, CJ's in a rhythm.
Yeah.
'Cause once he gets in that rhythm, you saw it at Ohio State.
Exactly.
Once he got in the rhythm,
Once he's
he's
in the
one of the
rhythm,
hardest
it's good.
quarterbacks to stop. But the
Exactly.
problem was we got out of that rhythm and they made bonehead decisions.
Yeah, and again, I feel like it went back to the play calling. It's just like you can have CJ Stroud go into the rhythm, but you also need to help him out by giving Damian Pierce some runs. Again, I'm just incredibly disappointed at 11 carries for 38 yards, and you match Lamar Jackson, a quarterback, with the amount of rushing yards in one game.
Unless attempts.
Unless it's something that to me that's embarrassing. Like Bobby Slowick needs to go back and really and look at this tape and be like, what am I doing?
Look what you did last season with the Niners.
Yeah.
What was the strength? Their offense turned around. They got McCaffrey because you know what? The guy could run the ball, average 4 or 5 yards a carry, could catch out the backfield. Utilize Damian Pierce the same way. He's improved his pass catching ability. He's all the preseason. You can catch the ball in the backfield.
Yeah.
Utilize him a little bit more. Take less pressure off a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Till he gets, till he's more acclimated to the NFL speed. And like I mentioned, he's going to start off slow.
Yeah.
But once he gets acclimated to NFL speed, what we saw against Georgia is going to be the normal for him.
Right. Going back to the mistakes, boy, Laramie Tunsil and flags and false starts are just synonymous, aren't they? They go hand in hand. Name a better duo than Laramie Tunsil and false starts.
Tail is old as time.
Tail is all this time.
And the guy playing left guard, oh man, he was just.
Was not
we
fat.
thought
It was-
Kenyon Green was bad. He was even worse.
Again, and we kind of expected that. We said that at the pre-show. It's like we knew that the offensive line was bad, was going to be bad, but man, the fact that you got C.J. Stroud sacked 5 times, and we won't have our starters until like week 4 at the most.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we gonna do? Five every time? Is he gonna have 15 sacks before we go to game 4?
At least it's looking pretty bad. Like between the left guard and then the revolving door at right tackle, like we mentioned earlier, like Clowney had free run at the quarterback the entire game.
Right.
The good thing is Clowney's not a good pass rusher because he got no sacks. But
So
he did get pressure, but at the same time, like still like
so
those
now,
pressures
yeah.
disrupted the timing.
So now I'm just wondering. Okay, so what concerns me about this game, I know that we were going to measure exactly how the Texans were going to do against good team like the Ravens, right? But then if you really dissect it, the Ravens weren't such a good team. They were missing so much offense that they got lucky a few times.
They got very lucky because
So
there was basically non-existent throwing offense. It was basically Lamar improvising, getting a couple first down runs, sitting with Dobbs before he got hurt. But then they got lucky with a couple of turnovers and good field position and took it. They did what we couldn't do: take advantage of the good field position. They
right,
capitalized and scored touchdowns while we scored field goals. Because if we would have scored field goals, it'd been a much closer ball game.
right.
I mean, scored touchdowns instead of field goals, it'd been a much closer ball game.
right, exactly. So I'm looking at these the score real quick. So I'm looking forward to next week, and we got the Indianapolis Colts coming up next week. I wanted to go over some of the stats for the Colts today against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anthony Richardson was 24 out of 37 for 223 yards, one touchdown, and one interception. So he finished it off with a 64.9 completion rating, again 223 yards and one touchdown. Um, I mean, he was averaging about 6.1 yards a game here, and he had a overall QB rating of 79%. So
Nothing spectacular, but not bad for a debut. Because one of
right,
his biggest issues, he was very unpolished coming out of college. There was concerns about his accuracy, his ability to make the NFL throws. I would say he answered those questions, but it wasn't, it wasn't as bad as most people thought it was going to be. So hats off to him.
do you now let's go back really quick to CJ Stroud's performance. Obviously, he had a 63.6 completion rating, which is just a little under Anthony Richardson's. He did pass for more yards than Anthony Richardson's, but he didn't have the touchdown, right? But his overall QB rating was 78 points. So they seem kind of similar to today's game, at least.
Similar numbers.
Right.
I think one of us is playing a better defense than the other one, though.
Right. So do you think? How do you match up Anthony Richardson with C.J. Stroud next week?
I think they're going to definitely look into the film
Yeah.
and realize, you know what? We need to prioritize pounding the rock, setting
Yeah.
up the run game, because that's going to make the play action that much more believable, more effective, and it's going to help our quarterback out. Less pressure on him. Focus on what our strengths are. David Pierce is, top 10 running back in the league. Before he got hurt last year. Focus on that. You do that well, you're going to set up the play action. It's going to open the entire playbook. Because if you're playing from behind and trying to, play, out of the shotgun the entire game, I don't think CJ's ready for that just yet. It's
No.
especially without a legit number one receiver. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle
Yeah.
doing it that way. You want to focus on setting him up for success, and that's going to start with
Right.
utilizing Pierce.
So I'm gonna say the keys for next week's victory. I guess I'm gonna start it soon, and I'll say it again next week when we're on a pregame show. We if the Texans can, based off of what we saw today, if the Texans can hold down Anthony Richardson because he uses his legs, most likely there was good times in Lamar Jackson today where the Texans did hold him down, but during the times, wow, so I'm watching the Eagles game right now versus the Patriots.
Ooh, pick
That's a
six.
pick six. Eagles up. They're about to be up. Third. Wow.
10-0, basically.
10-0. Wow. Bill Belichick's definitely in the hot seat. Anyway, back to where we were.
I pray for O'Brien's downfall.
Yeah, me too. Fire O'Brien. Uh, if
Launch him to the moon.
if they so for the Texans, if they can maintain Anthony Richardson next week, if they can protect CJ
That
Stroud
was
to where
very
he
reminiscent
doesn't,
of, sorry, that was very reminiscent of Tony. Bounce off his hands,
yeah,
goes to the corner's
it
hand,
was.
pick six.
Yeah.
Literally the same play.
Right.
Man.
So if the Texans can make sure that CJ Stroud doesn't get sacked 5 times next week,
That'd be a start.
that would be a start. Number two, Bobby Slowick needs to step it up with the offensive play calls. Utilize your weapon, Damian Pierce.
He needs to have at least 20 carries.
Yes.
20.
11 carries was just embarrassing for 38 yards. That's embarrassing for Damian Pierce. They need to utilize him more in this offense. Also,
Tank
mistakes.
Dell needs to start.
Tank Dell needs to start.
Noah Brown needs to sit down and hold that clipboard next to Davis
Yeah.
Mills. Tank Dell should be the starting slot receiver until he's ready for the wide receiver one.
Bro, I saw Davis Mills holding his helmet up with his helmet on. I'm like, bro, sit back down. Hold that clipboard. Davis Mills could never. Um, so that and obviously mistakes, fundamental tackling on the defense. Just you got to improve on defense. It makes no sense that you're in D'Amico Ryans' defense and you are missing tackles left and right.
Take it back to my high school coach's approach. You miss a tackle, you're running laps.
Yeah,
I promise you, I never missed a tackle my entire life after that. Because running laps after practice in this heat, no, sir. No.
that's right. So the
Astros about to
Astros,
score the Texans.
yeah, the Astros are about to outscore the Texans. The Astros have more points than the Texans put up today. So I should tell you something.
It's going to be a long season. Pray for my liver.
Yeah, exactly. Rios is turning yellow soon. 12-2. Astros are winning right now. So let's go Stros. At least we got the Stros, right?
Yep. I'll see you guys at the World Series. I will be a menace if we win it.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to be our show for this week. We are at the live at the Bull and Bear Pub here in Houston. So just to remind you, these are they're going to have games running all through Sunday Night Football. Let me tell you what the specials are for you guys in the Houston area. Please come out and to the Bull and Bear Pub. So they got 16-ounce draft beers for the beer of the month for $4. You buy a pitcher and get a 12-inch medium pizza, one topping pizza, pepperoni pizza, or house nachos, or jalapeno boats for $3.99. 11.
Food is delicious.
Food is delicious.
I've been eating all day, and man,
yeah,
I'm full.
And if you get a large pizza for $11.99, you get 3 free toppings on it. The address here at Bull and Bear is 11980 Westheimer Road, Suite A, Houston, Texas, 77077. Come say hi to us. Come say hi to our owners, Tom, both Toms. And like I said, give it a shot here at the Bull and Bear Live. Great food.
And buy me a picture.
Yeah, probably has a picture. But nonetheless, that's going to be our show. We'll be back next week at the Bull and Bear Pub at 11 a.m. for our pregame show, and of course, 30 minutes after for the postgame show.
Hopefully, not limitation of tears like today.
Yeah,
man, this is rough.
Exactly. All right, guys, you know where to follow us. Follow us on Instagram at JustFansPod, on X at JustFans22. Follow our TikTok at JustFans2022. And our Twitch at JustFans22. That's going to be it for us this week. See y'all, I believe, Tuesday for our AFC Roundtable show through the Let's Talk Sports Network. We'll see y'all Tuesday. Anything else you want to say, Rios, before we go?
I hate the Cowboys.
I agree. We all hate the Cowboys. Candy? All right.
Okay, she's not here.
She's not here. She left. All right, y'all. That's going to be it for us this week. Peace. We'll see y'all next Sunday at the Bull and Bear Live. Come join us. Peace.